¡Espada!
Hey, what's up guys? It's Mr. Sean here on the Chimera Miniatures YouTube page, welcoming you all back to the fourth and final part of 20 tips and tricks to being a decent DM. In this video, we'll be covering tips number 16 through 20. I just want to thank you for joining me along on this ride, and if you haven't, if this is the first time you've seen us, hey, links to parts 1, 2, and 3 will be in the description. But before we get started, as always, the ads. This YouTube page is not monetized, there is no Patreon, there is, however, my eBay and Etsy pages where I sell all of your custom miniature tabletop wargaming needs. Here we have one of my most recent additions. It is a skinwalker slash shapeshifter slash just shifter, if that's the D&D class you're playing, pirate. Check out that sweet, sweet body horror, my friends. And now, let's get started with tip number 16. Starting off at number 16 with a very important rule that the party is the main character. This is a good rule not only for the DMs out there, but also for any problematic that guy players who like to make the whole game all about them and their character and their character's story. Again, if you just want a single player experience, go play Skyrim. D&D is a group activity, and while you, the Dungeon Master, are telling the story, the main character of that story are the players. Moving right along to number 17, this next tip is a mouthful to say, but is a very simple tip. And that tip is no PvP or DMVP, seduction, persuasion, or intimidation rolls. Free will is a thing, guys, and I don't care how intimidating your barbarian, how seductive your bard, or how persuasive your rogue might be, ultimately, player autonomy should not be infringed upon. I've seen a lot of horror stories where basically either a DM or a problem player will try and seduce Milady in-game, because if our character is totally banged, then we should totally bang too. And if you think that's a good idea, then you probably weren't listening to tip number 11. Please understand though that all of these roles are perfectly acceptable when used against NPCs, because NPCs aren't people. Alright, coming at you with tip number 18. Tip number 18 is, of course, to be very clear about what is not allowed. Now, in this case, we are not talking about classes, archetypes, races, anything like that. No, we are talking about the harder subject material. This is something you should always do in Session 0 when getting to know your players. Get to know what they are okay with and let them know what you are okay with. What kind of things am I talking about? Well, for one, passionate hugging. Most DMs, if passionate hugging occurs at all, typically will go, hey, your roll succeeds, and we fade to black. But some people want to get a little bit more in depth. There's even books out there for this, and if that's your thing, that's your thing. Typically, I just fade to black. Maybe tell them to take a little bit of bludgeoning damage if it was a particularly rough night. Oh, thank you. No kink shame, but no kink same. You do you, boo-boo. But we're not just talking about the after-hours upstairs tavern activities here. We're also talking about torture, assault, all kinds, and any other thing that could trigger someone, could make them uncomfortable. I typically play with a group that's pretty much down for anything, but hey, just because one group was okay with something, because one player's okay with something, doesn't mean they all are. Don't assume, unless you want to make an ass out of you and me. I'm already an ass, so that changes nothing, but hey, don't be an ass. Also, just a minor side note, it's good to do this just because it's nice to let players know what they're in for, what kind of a game you're looking to run, and that's because it's not great to be surprised. There are bad surprises, and I've experienced them myself. I was invited to play D&D 5th edition for the first time by a coworker. I'd play a little bit of 3.5 back in the day. I was certainly no expert. I much prefer 5th edition, but he invited me over for a session 1 of his campaign that was a couple other coworkers were joining as well, and then this Co-workers, friends outside of work would make up the rest of the party. So sit back, relax, because it's horror story time. Now this co-worker of mine was a rather large fella, kind of neckbeardy, even though I didn't know what a neckbeard was back then. Had a little bit of a smell to him, but he and I didn't work that closely together, so I had never really noticed it. But I get to his place, which is actually his friend's parents' house where he is living, and stepping foot through the door, it is clear they are hoarders. Having never been in a hoarder's house before, it was mildly terrifying. We go down to the basement, which is his bedroom, so to speak, slash just a unfinished rumpus room that has the reclining chair that is also his bed. While there were two other familiar faces there, because I work with these guys as well, and these were perfectly wonderful people. One of them even became a roommate for me later. The rest of his friends were a vast assortment of fellow neck and leg beards. And I'm not trying to body shame anybody. Your preference is your preference, and I respect that. But these were not attractive people. They were morbidly obese. I think one of them even had to have her leg taken away for diabetes later, which they're quite young for that to have happened. But the thing was, so not a good-looking bunch, and the hardcore level of just sexual content that both they and the DM brought into this game was mildly terrifying. I mean, we're talking a shaman homebrew class whose totem was an animated dildo weapon. There was attempted assault of a sexual nature, both attempted and completed, to various NPCs in the game. And ultimately, I kind of just bit the bullet, played through the session, but it was kind of like I talked to my friend who had also joined. I said, I'm not going back to that guy's campaign ever. I don't want to play with him. I don't want to play with those people. It was very uncomfortable and awkward, and it would have been really nice to know ahead of time. Not so much the kind of people there, again, not trying to body shame, but it was kind of an assault to the senses and the ears, and that's just not... I was expecting high fantasy, not a porn parody of Lord of the Rings. So yeah, letting people know what is and isn't okay, very important. Rule number 19 is only use a DM PC as a temporary plot hook. Now, I know, as someone who suffers from the DM curse, I get it. Always the DM, never the party member. But even though it could be like, hey, I'm gonna throw this DM-controlled party member into the party so he can tag along so I can have fun too, don't. Unless it is a plot hook for, just to get them along the way, like maybe it's someone who leads them on their first quest, don't. A DM PC should never be something that you use that's planned to be there for the long haul. It is not about you. You get to control and play the entire world, and while that's different than being a player character, it is fun in and of its own way, but it's too hard to be fair and balanced. You're like, don't be like, yes, hello, adventurers, I am Lord Awesome McBadass, and allow me to save you from this thing that would surely kill you. No. The party should be able to solve their own problems. Yes, they might choose to bring along some backup every once in a while, but ultimately, it is let the players shine. You do you, but don't steal their thunder. Your thunder is monsters and plot. Theirs is player stuff. Alright guys, we are at our final tip of the list. What is this one gonna be? What has this been building up to? Drum roll, please! Tailor your expectations as a storyteller to your player's comfort zone. I know, a little anticlimactic. I apologize, but this is a very, very important part of being a dungeon master. You see, when you start making your campaign, you have a story, you want to tell, and you want it to be, you have certain expectations for where you want things to go, for the kind of experience you're looking for in your campaign. When I was tasked by my game night group to prepare a Dungeons & Dragons campaign for them, I had never done anything like that before, rather, other than maybe kind of doing trying to run a Mutants and Mastermind short campaign once upon a time. But I went online looking to see if there were any tips and tricks videos, and that's where I discovered Critical Role. Now, say what you want about Critical Role, whether you like it, love it, hate it, whatever. I find it very entertaining, and it did teach me quite a bit about Dungeons & Dragons and how it flows and how it works. But that is a professional production put on by professional voice actors, and they get very, very into the roleplay aspect, which I love, and I would love to have a campaign where that happens, and I even know a few people who supposedly theirs do get to that way. The people I currently DM for aren't always as comfortable with acting out the roleplay. They'll tell me what they do and they'll make their roles, but they don't do a full-on theatrical production. That's not their comfort zone. And while I didn't expect them to be that way, given the people I was running the game for, watching Critical Role has made me kind of yearn for that to a certain level. But that's not my player's comfort zone, and therefore I don't expect that of them. Or maybe it's not roleplay. Maybe you want to run a campaign that the only way to survive it is to be a min-max player, but all the people that are interested in it, that's not what's fun for them. Some people like playing creative builds, and it's not about optimization as much. And if that's all you have to work with, then tailor your expectations or don't dungeon master at all. And this definitely ties in with previous tips, it's all about communication. Both you and your players communicating what they're looking for, what they're looking to get out of, what they're comfortable with, what they want, what they don't want. And all in all, this is a group activity. And as a group, you need to all come together and decide what you want to do. This is hanging out on a Friday night. This is what you do instead of going to the bar or to the movies or playing a game of Scrabble. If you're not all having fun, then you're not doing it right. Or you should maybe do something other than Dungeons & Dragons. It's not for everybody. But ultimately, yes, don't expect things that other people aren't comfortable delivering. Unless, of course, you were very open at the front and they said, yes, I'm all for this, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, I don't like that, I don't want to do that. Well, you said you were cool with it. Yeah, but I'm not really, I don't like that. Then that player needs to leave. It's not all on the DM. And guys, that is the last tip I have for you. I want to thank you for listening to me ramble on about what I think helps make someone a decent DM. Again, this is not about being a professional. This is not being about the greatest of all time, or the GOAT, if you will. This is about just being someone who can run a game of Dungeons & Dragons, and hopefully everybody will have fun. And I would like to think that if you follow these tips and tricks a little bit, that can be made a little easier for you. To sum it all up, the big things that a lot of these share aspects of is be adaptable, communicate well, and don't be a dick or let someone else be a dick. Everyone should get along, everyone should have a good time, and that's really what D&D is about. It's not about a power trip. It's not about being the greatest. It's about being decent. It's having a good, fun, decent time. And I hope that's what you took away from these videos. If you like this content, please hit the like button, ring the notification bell, subscribe, leave a comment, and maybe if you're feeling so generous, go to my Etsy and eBay page and see if there are any minis you would like to purchase for your tabletop game. I'm Mr. Sean. Again, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this journey. In the future, we're going to be doing all kinds of videos. Probably have a neckbeard cringe video coming up next. This video came out a little earlier than I was expecting because I am stuck at home today, not feeling well, and I needed something to kill the morning. Anyway, again, thank you so much. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.